Looking for a place to speak your truth? This podcast is on an endless pursuit to build through entrepreneurship, empowerment, and creativity. Through thought-provoking content and a fearlessness to dive into untouched topics with an undeniable dedication to highlighting others who are often overlooked. This is Deep Conversations.
Stay tuned for Deep Conversation Podcast.
Welcome to Deep Conversations Podcast, everybody. My name is Ryan Stewart, and today I'm here. I'm blessed to have two guys who are running a company called Know Your Politician. I have Evan Higgins and I have KB. I appreciate you guys being on, but before we start, I want you guys to give the viewers a little bit of who you guys are. I'll start with you, Evan.
Yep. Hey guys, Evan Higgins, co-founder of Know Your Politician. Born and raised in New York. Went to school in Philly. That's how KB and I connected. We've known each other for 16 years, just about, give or take. Long time. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm KB Oshodi, born and raised in Boston. I live in the Miami area now. Like Evan mentioned, we met in college in Philadelphia. And happy to join this podcast with Ryan. Thanks for having us on.
I appreciate it, man. You said you're from Boston. You NBA champion, man.
Yeah. Championship City, man.
Yeah. But I want to start with you guys. I want to talk about you guys' mission and you guys' impact. Can you guys elaborate on the specific motivations that led to the creation of your organization?
Yeah, I could take this one. So it started twofold, right? In 2016, Donald Trump got elected. And me being ignorant in politics, I asked my guy Evan here, who's very into politics, how could something like this happen? Was like, people don't pay attention. People got to vote. People don't understand what's going on in the media and the news, and things like this can happen. So that's when we first thought about the idea. We then put it on the shelf a couple years later, 4 years later to be exact, 2020 with George Floyd, and all the noise around that and his untimely death and people asking for change and people wanting like you said at the beginning of our call, right? Just something different. That we want to see something different in the media and the news. We want to understand what's going on. We want to be able to make an impact. We dusted this idea off the shelf, right? We came back and said, you know what? We do need a simple platform, someplace where people like us can go to quickly understand who their politicians are and what their stance is on topics that matter to them. And that was kind of the idea of Know Your Politician.
So how do you guys, how do you measure the impact of your voter education initiatives on, electoral outcomes and voter engagement?
So right now we're doing like a two-part process. So we're tracking activity on our site, and then we compare that to outcomes. So in 2021, when we first launched the site in New York and Massachusetts, the greatest profile that had the number of hits was Eric Adams. And he ended up winning the New York election. Yeah. Going into 2025, we've been pushing to market the platform to see if this still holds true. Like, is our platform, and do we see a correlation between the traffic visits, the profile visits, the stances that people have, and how that correlates to what's happening in the public? So far, it's 1-for-1, but that was a small sample size. A lot of the feedback we got on the platform from both investors, electeds, people that are active in the political realm is, can you prove that your platform is an indicator for electoral outcomes?
What are some of the, the most significant challenges that y'all faced in educating voters about their candidates?
Yeah, I mean, Ev, I'll start and then you can, I'm sure you can add on. Yeah. Probably the biggest one for us is, historically politics isn't exciting, right? And it's not something people want to hear about it in their day-to-day lives, because it's been kind of bogged down in media and making it difficult to understand, and kind of the shadow kind of movements that are happening around, and people are kind of skeptical, right, of politics in general. So when we're pushing something in there out there like a platform, probably the biggest difficulty we have is just awareness and adoption of, hey, this platform exists, and it's not the typical avenue of a Fox News or some type of news station, right? That's going to give you some biased take on your politicians. This is strictly just the facts, right? Strictly just the information directly from that campaign or that politician's website or official government website. So kind of spreading that idea without losing folks, right, while still keeping it engaging has been a challenge.
And I think another challenge that makes adoption difficult is the perception that people's votes don't matter. I was on a segment a few weeks ago, and this question was asked to me, like, how do you respond to people that say their vote don't matter? You look on social media, a lot of people are saying that I'm not voting because it doesn't matter. The fact is, no matter how much money gets put into politics, everyone gets one vote. And by sitting out an election, that is your vote saying that you don't really care of the outcomes. And what's interesting is when we interviewed a few electeds, they told us they only do outreach to people that vote. So like if you don't vote, these electeds are not gonna come to your neighborhoods. They're not gonna knock on your doors. They're not gonna ask you what your problems are. It's like, why would they? They have a limited amount of funds and you've chosen to not participate. So they're not gonna engage with you.
Yeah.
And that has been a really significant hindrance to help people change their mindsets to say, hey, I need to pay attention because my vote actually does matter. And you've seen a lot of different electeds, both from Stacey Abrams to AOC, even to folks on the right, like the George Latimer race that just took place here in New York, right? They're going out to people that haven't historically participated and giving them that education to say, hey, if you really care about an issue and care about what happens in your neighborhood, you might want to actually participate in the election.
And that one piece I'll tag on there too is that in your neighborhood, right? A lot of people, on the federal level, yeah, your vote may not have as much weight as it does as you voting for your city council person, right? That's in your exact neighborhood that shops at the same supermarket that you do. So kind of we're also pushing that message as well, right? Letting people understand that, hey, vote in your local elections, right? These people are, your vote definitely matters at that level.
Yeah, it's funny listening to you guys. I had an interview a little while ago with a group also from New York, and it was they had built an app called I think it was Know Your Voice, and what it was you could kind of text your local officials and kind of, it was almost like a big group chat. And I thought it was interesting too because Evan, what you were saying, a lot of people not voting. I think the reality of it is that's them saying they don't know. They're really not in tune to really what's going on. So instead of just going out there, I really don't know what's going on. So I kind of don't, it doesn't matter to me. But those are the ones that you'll hear complain a lot. You
It's
know,
interesting. It's
Yeah.
interesting conversation because like I will have friends that complain about particular topics and we don't want to be that guy, but sometimes because of this platform, I've taken that mantle of being that guy. So, for example, a friend of mine was complaining about his kid's schooling, right? It's like, hey, my kid's school, they don't have any books, they don't do anything like. And I asked him when was the last time he voted, and he didn't have an answer. And I was like, why would someone care if you don't show up to the polls? Why would an elected care about your school if they feel like 80% of the people that attend the school don't vote? There's nothing for them to be gained out of it. You have to vote so that people know you exist so that they can actually hear your problems because they know that if they don't, you're going to vote for their opponent. And it's very self-serving, but I think sometimes everyone forgets that our country is a bunch of people doing self-serving stuff. So if you can use that to your advantage, why not?
mm-hmm. And two, piggybacking off of what you said, this country is I don't want to call people robots, but it's a lot of followers. They're going to follow a lot of what's going on. So if you hear one of them saying they're not voting, how many of them do you think really in the entire country who are really not voting? But then you'll watch to see everything kind of get destroyed or destroy yourself, and you're the first one saying, see, nothing, this country don't care about nothing. It's like they can't run or they can't do what they do if it's not for you. You know what I mean? We're the ones who controlling their job. So you just have to. That's why I think it's interesting what you guys are doing with your with your platform and knowing your politicians, because that's where it starts, is locally.
Yep. And one of the things you touched on too, it's they work for us, right? These politicians.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, I think, kind of miss that, right? Like your tax dollars and all those things, right? That goes to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to me, why wouldn't you want to hold them accountable?
Exactly.
Why would you want to show up and just make sure, like Evan was saying, right, that I exist, I'm here, right, and I can make noise, right, if I'm not getting the things that I want, because otherwise, what incentive in America in general do you have if something's going one way and nobody's talking about it, then it just goes that way for forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unless you make noise, unless you show up, unless you make yourself known, nothing will ever change.
And to piggyback on that, like I went on another segment and I was explaining to both the host and like the people there that democracy is like a 24/7 job.
Yep.
I think people, they looked at the 2020 election from Biden versus Trump and was like, okay, we voted Biden in, mission accomplished, right? But unfortunately, it's not a 24/7. It's a 24/7, 365 job. You can't take your eye off the ball, or else whatever you're pushing for won't happen. Things don't change overnight. And like the example that I always point to is Roe v. Wade being overturned. That was like a 30, 40-year fight
Yep.
that people had in getting that overturned. And they just didn't, they stayed the course, right? And they understand that it's a 24/7, 365 job, and they use that to achieve what they wanted. Whereas people sometimes say, I did my job, I voted somebody in office, and then I'm back to Love Island, or I'm back to Power Ghost, right? Like I did what I need to do. But you needed a way to help people remember that once November comes, there's other things that are happening that you also need to keep an eye on. And that's why we wanted to build this platform.
So, before I get back into some of these questions, I had something that just popped in my mind. Are in the inner cities, in the Black and brown neighborhoods, um, we know that it's a lot of systematic racism going on. It's a lot that goes on just through the lines. But why do you think in our communities it's that voice of, I'm not, my vote don't matter? Why do you think that is?
I could take my opinion. I could take a stab. It's you said in the beginning. Your question is the answer, right? It's systemic racism, right? Because you've seen the fight. You've seen the people, the older generations, what they've gone through, and it doesn't feel like we've come a long way at times, right? So it seems like, yeah, like I've heard that fight. I've heard go to the polls and vote. But what the people are missing is, what, tying it back to what Evan said, is that, yeah, it's not a vote and done.
Exactly.
It is that 20, 30, maybe even 40 years of fighting the good fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Putting that vote down and understanding, okay, like that change is going to come over time. So I think it's that disconnect of wanting the immediate effect, which happens when you see things like the protest and stuff like that. That's an immediate effect, and you can see it. Versus getting a law changed, getting a policy through the door, right? That's not a immediate change. That takes time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the instant need for gratification plays a role in why they change, why we're seeing a lack of participation, because people vote and they don't see the results right away. It causes a huge pendulum swing. So I came across this article in the New York Times where there was a group of Black farmers that said they were supporting Trump. And I thought that was interesting. So reading into it, they were saying, hey, under Trump, like I received, my stimulus checks. Remember, Trump passed this bill that sent money to farmers, right? They said under Biden, Biden was building this program, but the program got shut down. And because of that, they're like, well, I'm going to go back to Trump. Instead of thinking about looking at the problem holistically, where, Biden had a program, but it was actually contested and overturned in court. And that's why he didn't get the money. So instead of staying the course and supporting your initial candidate, you're seeing that huge pendulum swing back to what people know in order to get what they think and not having that long-term view. And you see it in other walks of life too, right? Like when you think about how we go to school, right? We have friends that, they take shortcuts and they want to get money quickly instead of thinking about, how am I going to be making money 30 years from now when I'm in high school versus money tomorrow? I think that instant gratification plays a huge role in people's purview and how they look at things.
And that's a dangerous game too. And I don't think politicians know that. You know what I mean? Because when like you said, KB, takes a long time for laws to get passed. Sometimes presidents can pass laws and some of it don't go through until the next president is actually in office. So you may think, Trump was doing something good, but those could be some of the presidents prior to his, that were trying to get passed. And it's just, like you said, it's that pendulum swing. That's a dangerous game that you play, especially when you're dealing with politics and the world and democracy. But can you guys describe your experience with the Venture Crush program and how it has helped your organization grow?
Yeah, Venture Crush it's a good networking group to have. Like they're basically a bunch of people that have access to capital that for us we haven't really leveraged them because we've been bootstrapping this on our own. But they basically open doors to people with capital. So they have events, they host events, they let you know, hey, I'm hosting a panel with all kinds of founders and all kinds of VCs. So they have VCs that are Black owned or that support women or that support like certain initiatives like climate change. And they'll have these sessions where you can go and you can meet these investors and you can gain connections, not with them, but with other like-minded founders. And this way you don't feel like you're alone. I think a lot of the entrepreneurial experience tends to be lonely, right? It's just for us, it's just two of us putting in the work day in and day out. All people see is the product. And that can get lonely, especially if you don't see the results that you are hoping for. So just having a network of people that you can call on is extremely helpful.
Yeah, I really felt what you said with the with the entrepreneurship part. And I think that's again, going back to the instant gratification. That's why you don't have as many entrepreneurs and people jumping into that lane because that you're not getting that instant gratification. That's a tough road, man. The entrepreneurship, you know what I mean? And it's again, like I told you guys on camera, I love to see you guys doing what you're doing because just you might not hear it as often because you got your head down and you work. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're on the right path, what you're doing. So just keep doing what you're doing because we need people like you. You know what I mean? I want y'all to know that before, we move on. Just stay the course because it does get rough.
Appreciate that, man.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. But what other programs or partnerships, what you was just talking about have been instrumental in advancing your mission and contributing to your success?
So right now we've been talking to this app called Hey Ty. It's like a Black-owned podcast app. Their co-founder, Kerry Realis, I actually got connected through him through another mentor of mine. And he's been so instrumental in just helping us with the exact messaging that you just have, right? Like, hey, this is a lonely road. You're not going to solve problems today or tomorrow or even next week. But just remember, like, this is still the problem you're working towards. And think about that journey every step you take. He's been instrumental in that. And another partnership that has really been helpful for us is we have like a group of, I wouldn't say mentors, but like advisors that we kind of go to talk about different political ideas that we may have that actually are in the political realm. There are people of color that we rely on to say, hey, we're thinking about introducing this new idea. Would love to get your thoughts on it as someone that works in this space. Or, hey, we want to add this feature to the platform. Do you think this will make sense from a political lens? Are we communicating this correctly? Because KB and I don't have political backgrounds. We both are consultants by day. So our job is to solve problems. So we're trying to rely on these folks that have political expertise to say, hey, is this the correct messaging that we need to have? Does this make sense from a political lens? If you were talking to constituents, is this what you would say? And then if they say yes, then we dumb it down.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's kind of been our methodology on how we try to build and design this platform.
Yeah, and I think the third group as well that Evan kind of touched on is advocacy groups as well, right? So we've partnered with folks like Marcus for Democracy. We have meetings next week with the Urban League. We just came back from the Forbes Black Summit. So just kind of getting in those groups, getting in those rooms, kind of similar, Ryan. That's why we appreciate you having us on. Just getting in those rooms, letting people know we're out there, and you know that they're a resource that looks like them, and just kind of getting that message out there and seeing where it sticks. What Evan and I determined pretty early on, the way things kind of take off, especially in the Black community, is kind of that grassroots word of mouth approach. You know, corporate America and social media, that's all fine and good, but the things really take off in the streets for us, right? Kind of like on the ground level. So kind of hitting that pavement for us is kind of the lane we're in right now, and that's why we're happy to go on shows like yours. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Al, KB, you know, you had touched on it earlier in the beginning, but in the wake of the George Floyd protest, how did your organization respond to the increased demand for voter education? Because that was one thing, Evan, also you had touched on a little earlier that I think it opened the eyes for not only everybody, but especially people in our community. You know what I mean? That voting really matters. Unfortunately, that's what had to happen for people to see that.
Yeah.
But, you know, what was that like for that, you know, with the increased demand for voter education?
So I answer that in two parts, right? The first part is, what did we do? What was our response? We created that. We created the website, right? That's what we did, right? We kind of dusted the idea off and said, nah, we need to do this now. And that feeling of we need to do this now is what I think a lot of people felt, right? A lot of people felt they actually saw the injustice and said, damn, we still in them Rodney King days. This is crazy. This is 2020. And they just, just a feeling of this is enough. Like something has to be done, right? And so that's kind of the mindset that we were in when that started. That was kind of like it's a negative push, but it was a push, right? It gave us that push to like, hey, let's take this from idea to actual product, to actual something we can push out there for the masses, right? And help people, help our people.
Oh, I didn't know if you had something to say, Evan, but can you guys provide examples of how your educational materials have helped voters make more informed decisions in recent elections?
Yeah, I think one of the major selling points that we have on the platform is people don't know who to vote for. So what we've done is we've taken stances on a wide variety of topics. So let's say you're interested in understanding what elected officials are saying about the economy, right? The economy is a big question that everyone's talking about. We would de-identify the candidates, and then you'll cycle through a bunch of different stances to indicate whether you agree or disagree with those stances. At the end of the game, you'll get to see like a score, like, okay, I agreed with these two candidates on their stance on the economy, and these three I didn't agree with. The idea here is to help paint a picture of candidates that you more align with without directly telling you that you should vote for this candidate, right? It's just hey, you like 8 of these candidate stances, the other candidates you liked maybe 2 or 3, you align better with that candidate.
And I want to double down on that too, right? That's what the politician is trying to get to, right? Is people voting on their feelings on the issues, right? And not necessarily one side or the other, or how they feel about, oh, this candidate does such and such. No, what is their stance on the issue that matters to me? Do I care about criminal justice? Do I care about housing? What are their stance on those topics, right? And voting that way. And that's what we're really trying to get to.
Yeah, we wanted to shed the Democrat, Republican, Independent label and just have people really focus on the issues. Now, granted, yes, naturally, because of our two-party system, there are always going to be Democrats and Republicans, but we wanted to be able to, hey, give everyone an opportunity to shed that label and say, you know what, just purely on issues, who do I align with? And people have been surprised. They may thought they were more moderate, but they leaned more left, or they thought they leaned left, but they were really more right. And it's interesting to hear people's feedback on playing the game because one, they learn more, and then two, on very controversial topics like cannabis recreational use, like understanding where certain candidates and officials would lie on those issues may shift elections. So it's interesting to see how people have come to the platform and play these games and have them provide feedback to KB and I on their experience.
I think I had a conversation with a friend of mine about politics not too long ago. You guys, y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, but as I've got older, I'm be 40 this year. I always say as I got older, I've learned when you're dealing with politics, you have to take the emotion out of it because what you're looking at, and it's like you said, it's sometimes you jump into it, Evan, and it's like you may be surprised of you end up over here when you thought you were here. So it's like you have to take that because sometimes with emotion, it could cloud a lot of things for you. So if you just kind of sit and just really listen, politicians love to talk. So if you if you just listen to what they're saying, they're eventually going to tell you exactly whether or not in the beginning they'll sugarcoat things and make it sound good for you, but eventually they're going to tell you exactly what is really going on.
Yeah, and what's unique about that, right, is those politicians, yes, they love to talk, but it's also the media as well, right, in terms of the emotion in it, right? They're putting their bias, they're putting their spin, and they're creating a story because that's what the news does, right? It's not, it's there for information, but it's also selling you, right? They got to get their views up as well, so they're selling you a story, they're selling that emotion, and what Kip, your politician is trying to do, right, is exactly like you said, is get right to the facts, right? We're like, what exactly is it, right? And kind of remove that emotion from your decision making, and hopefully remove some of that biases, right? And understand, okay, this is what this person feels on this issue. I connect with that. I didn't have to get any outside information, another story, somebody had to throw it in my face. Like that just makes sense to me. And being able to get to that, I think will help people make better decisions.
I have an interesting anecdote on that. So how we source stances is we pull information from the candidates' websites directly. So we would see candidates, they would have, hey, here's Evan Higgins' position on housing, and it will be 3 paragraphs long. But what they're really saying is, we want fair and equitable housing for everyone in those 3 paragraphs, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how is a person in today's world where everything is 15 seconds or less, if I see a video on Instagram that's 30 seconds long, I'm like, it has to be captivating for me to pay attention, right? Who's reading all of that, right? Who's going to go through those 3 paragraphs to get to that one snippet that you actually care about? The really good politicians are good at that. They will say a whole lot of stuff, but out of all that entire stuff, there may be 1 or 2 things where you actually need to care about. So we wanted to be able to short circuit that process to say, don't worry about the candidates that have, that go on and on and on. Like Trump is a good example. He's a good talker. He can talk for hours on end. But what you really care about are these 5 points. This is what his messaging is, right? We want to be able to simplify all of these things so that people can be more informed because no one is sitting through an hour speech. That's crazy. We only have 24 hours in a day. How can we be an accelerator to folks to say, hey, I need to go vote or I need to understand my officials and I'm not trying to go through 20 different websites to figure that out.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, that's exactly how our website is structured, right? Like you go to some politician, click on his icon, right? The importance of his role is told to you in 5 bullet points or less. You click on a stance, you click on healthcare, his stance on healthcare is told to you within 5 bullet points or less, right? Kind of get you to the meat of that information quickly.
So through all of this, since you guys started this process, what is it? I'm gonna ask you, what have you learned about yourselves?
Jeez.
I always get that response too.
Yeah. So about myself, right? And I can't speak for Evan, but maybe he's feeling some of the same things as well, right? Um, the the amount of support that you need, like it really felt good. You saying, "Hey, you're doing a good thing," right? And keep on going, because like Evan mentioned in the beginning, you kind of feel like you're on an island, right? Like sometimes I like it really is just me and Nev against the world here, right? And it kind of gets demoralizing. You know, you put a lot of money into it. Uh, you put a lot of time and effort. You make calls, you don't get responses, right? So it's a lot of dead air that you run into sometimes, and it's like, oh, like what did I get myself into? But then when you have a good, for at least for me, when you have a good business partner, right, who can, and when you sit down together, you can really establish the vision. You realize what you're doing. No, this really does have potential to be something greater than what it is today. That kind of keeps you motivated.
I've learned to trust people less. I've learned to trust people less.
Yeah.
Like I've had tons of people that say, "Oh, this is a great idea. I love it." And then I'll ask them the day after the election if they used it. And they would say no.
Yep.
And it's like, well, why? Tell me about it. Oh, I forgot. Oh, I didn't think about it, right? So that tells us that we have a lot of work to do to kind of penetrate the lexicon and the minds of people because we're trying to change behaviors, right? And I think about like Uber, right? In the beginning, we used to hail taxis by hand, right?
Or try to anyways. They never really picked us up.
Hey, I was just about to go there, right? There was a certain segment of the population that couldn't get taxis,
Yeah.
right? So when Uber came out,
Early
those
adopter.
people were the early adopters. Like,
Yep.
yo, I'm just gonna go to Uber. I don't have to worry about not getting picked up. And the TLC commissions in the different communities never responded to that. And now you're seeing Uber and Lyft and other car sharing companies just eating up the taxi commission that once dominated the cities, right? Because of that one little change. So what we've been trying to do is trying to get to platforms like yours, try to connect with people, get in front of them to show them that, there are real people behind this and to help ingrain like, hey, this platform exists. Don't forget about it when your elections come around.
Yeah, it's. I always ask that question to a lot of people because we're all entrepreneurs and we're all in this. We all have our own visions, but we're all in the same lane of entrepreneurship. And for me, it's kind of both of y'all. It's like I've learned, Evan, to really not. It really is. It teaches you about people because when you're in this thing, you're going to hit. I wouldn't say rock bottom, but some days you're gonna feel like that. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of people really they don't be around. You know what I mean? Like you expect. I wouldn't say expect them to be because everybody, but you. My grandfather always told me. Uh, he always said, "You people are not gonna care about your stuff like you do. They're not gonna care about your vision like you do. They're not gonna care about a lot of stuff. So you have to. You the one that got to push through. But I feel like I get it from my mom sometimes. It's like you want to help so much, you expect people to be like you. That ain't. That's not reality, though. You know what I'm saying?
That's when I was saying the dead air, right? That's what it is.
Right there. Yep.
When I see myself, I am one of those people that reach out and help out and kind of, you can call me, right? And that's not been the response me and Evan been getting, right?
Yep.
It's kind of to, like he said, right? Yeah, they're interested, they're happy we're doing something busy, but it's not translating to actual effort, right? Actual dollars, actual hands on the project that we're working on. And you just got to find your North Star. Like I said, right, we know how this can go, we know where this can be, right? So we have to your point, stay on that path, right? And like I think your dad's right in the sense that we got to be the ones to continue to push it until until it takes off.
Once it blows up, because it's going to,
appreciate that.
You're gonna see all those people again, and they're gonna say, I knew y'all could do it. I was with you the whole time. I just backed you, let you do your own thing, and you be like, all right, you can go on it over there, man.
That's it.
I got a couple more questions for y'all. What are some of your long-term goals for the organization, and where do you see it in the next 5 years?
We can maybe ping pong this one though, but my biggest one that I can't wait for, right, is I think I look at our platform right now as in two phases, right? Phase one right now is the educational, informational stage, right, where we're trying to spread awareness, get people to understand that they can vote and they vote in elections that are not during the federal ones. That second phase, right, is the accountability, right? So I think once we expand and we get bigger, I can't wait to get to a level. Now we can start saying, hey, this is what this person ran on, right? And then being able to be also the same platform, like, did that person actually deliver on their promises, right? And just so that's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of politicians in there right now that do a lot of talking, right? But the actual action don't really meet their words, right? And so being that platform, for me, I think that's where the real change will come. And that's kind of like a future aspirational goal for myself for the platform.
No, same. Like, I can't wait to be able to help people post-election to say, hey, they ran on recreation, like legalizing marijuana. Did they support bills that came up? Are they taking funding from organizations that champion those causes? Like, these are the things that make people check out, right? People are very aware financially of what goes on behind the scenes at a surface level, maybe not in robust detail, but they know financially politicians kind of do what money tells them to do.
Yeah.
But like, it's not really exposed at the level that we're trying to expose it at.
Yeah.
And then how does that translate into bills? One of the biggest things I saw here in New York during some of those protests that were taking place in New York City was, okay, you guys are saying you support people protesting George Floyd, but at the same time, you're taking money from police unions.
Yeah.
Please tell me how that supports our cause. And there were elected officials giving back money to police unions. Like, that's power. That's the power that you can harvest when people are educated and informed. And it's like, how do you recreate that? Where can I go where I can see that information? Because initially, when someone did that, it was just an Excel sheet that someone made or like a Google sheet, and they just shared it. Hey, if you see these politicians protesting with you, just remember this person took 20 grand from the police union. This person took 50 grand. This person took 70 grand. And seeing that get almost, I guess, the equivalent of being doxxed on social media in real time was very powerful, because now these officials were putting out statements saying, yep, I took the money, I wrote a check to give it back. Like, that's real power. And I think people aren't able to make those connections because it's not easily accessible by design.
And that'll also help to tie back to earlier in the conversation, with the instant gratification, being able to once you're done voting, being able to track how your vote is doing, right? That's essentially it. Being able to say, okay, I voted for this person, and being able to follow, are they actually doing what they ran on, what I voted for them for, right? So now you know where to place your vote, and now you know to be active during, to show up at these town hall meetings and kind of make sure your voice is still being heard after you've done the voting part.
Now I have one more question, but before I do, you guys want to shout your social medias and things out?
Yeah. So please visit our page, the website. It's timetokyp.com. You can also follow us on our social media, TikTok, Twitter. We're also on IG at either Time to KYP or at Know Your Politician.
Final question. Can you guys share a personal story or experience that highlights the importance of voter education and the impact of your work?
Oh yeah, this one was funny. So when we built like a prototype to test it out with people. And I think the one thing that kind of shapes my like thinking around voting was we showed it to 20 people. All 20 people said it was a good idea. I showed it to Black people, Latino people, white people, Asian people, everyone across race, ethnicity, whether you're Democratic or Republican, they all agreed that this was needed. And to me, that's like the biggest thing that keeps me going, is that I've never worked on a product where 100% of the people are like, oh yeah, we need that. I'm like, man, why hasn't something like this been successful if everyone says that they need it, right? So understanding the why behind that has been probably something that that like keeps me going here. And that's my like story.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, for me,
If I stole yours, KB, I come up with another one.
yeah, no, it's
Ryan's gonna slice this up, by the way. So
I guess like so like a story for me in terms of the application. 'Cause, I mean, for me, the biggest one is what Evan said, right? It is that um there hasn't been a single room I walked in and somebody's been like, no, this doesn't make any sense. I've walked into like, I don't think it'll work. It's needed, but I don't think it'll work, and they'll give me some reasons, X, Y, and Z. But it's needed, and I guess the biggest thing for me is trying to figure out what that gap is, right? Between, okay, this is something that's needed, and what we're trying to figure out, like consultants that we are, the problem of, okay, this is something that we needed, we built something, now use it, right? And trying to figure out what that piece is of getting people to actually use the thing that's so needed, right? The thing that people, that can really help us and really help our community.
Yeah. I appreciate y'all so much, man. It's feel like I done gained some two more brothers, man. Y'all are with me. You know what I mean? But with you guys' brand and the things that y'all offer, I'm gonna be 101% because it's gonna work. You know what I mean? We always set out on a vision and we got a vision, but we're never prepared for how the journey's gonna go because it gets rough. You know what I mean? And that's sometimes, like you said, KB, it kind of throws you off a little bit. It's like, is this gonna work? You know what I mean? You keep knocking on doors and trying to get answers, and it's like some people are gonna turn you away. But what it's doing is it's testing. It's testing you. It's like, do you really want this? You know what I mean? How far are you willing to go? And that's something I had to learn with mine because doing this sometimes I'm editing the videos, I'm reaching out to people, and sometimes people can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna be there," and I can be sitting here, nobody shows up.
Yeah.
I had a live show that I did, and maybe 20 people showed up out of supposed to be like 60, 70.
Okay.
And you gotta still bring the same kind of energy and remain humble, even if it's just the one person. So it's like some of those things get tough. But you guys, I want to let y'all know, keep pushing, keep doing what y'all doing because it's necessary. And soon I'm coming up to New York, so I'm gonna look for y'all. So we can
Okay.
holler at y'all, man.
Well, when you come to Miami, you better holler at me too.
Oh, well, there too. Yeah, yeah. That'd be more fun, man.
well, you might be hearing from us soon. I'm in talks with like iHeartMedia to like do some
Yeah.
appearances on oh crap, what's that? The morning show in Philly
Oh,
on Power 99.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been talking to iHeartMedia about doing like a bunch of spots in Philly. They're trying to partner me with Comcast to get them to pay for like a spot. So I got a lot of things percolating. We got a lot of things percolating in Philly. Man, they even trying to get us on Telemundo in Philly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Man, look, yeah, I'm be looking, man. I'm be looking out for y'all.
oh,
Nah, I
don't
mean,
worry, you gonna get the heads up. Oh, we
yeah,
gonna get
you
the
big
heads
us
up.
up, we'll big you up too.
Yeah, man.
Let's bring each other along, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
Mhm.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. You guys, man, keep doing what y'all doing. I'm gonna be cheering for y'all from here. I'm gonna keep in touch with you guys. Hopefully we can collab later on down the line or sooner than later. But keep doing what y'all doing. I appreciate y'all for jumping on this podcast with me today, man.
All right, thanks for having
No,
us, man.
thanks, Ryan.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you too, baby.